off-grid life can definitely seem very intriguing, with its promise of an escape from the hectic and often expensive city life, far from the kind of peace and quiet that you only find in nature. That was at least in part what inspired me to build and also live in an off-grid tiny house alone here in a forest in Denmark. However, I will be the first to tell you that a life without power from the main electricity grid, without access to centralized heat and water and the sewer system, can at times also be a difficult one. I know this because now I've been living in my off-grid tiny house since 2020 and I've had my fair share of ups and downs along the way. And in this video I will share with you some of the most difficult aspects of living off the grid that I found over the course of the last 4 years. Not to scare any of you potentially future off-grid dwellers away, only to give you a piece of advice from a guy who's already been down the road for a while. My own journey with off-grid living began in 2019 when I built the house that I live in today. It's a 14 square meter tiny house on wheels that runs on solar power, rainwater and wood from the forest where I live. I bought this small property in 2021 and had my house moved out here so I could realize my dream of building a tiny off-grid homestead with a permaculture garden around it. Later, I added an additional off-grid cabin to my property since I needed a place for my guests to stay. And just a year later I finished making an outdoor rainwater shower, a compost toilet and a kitchen for this cabin. So now it's fully equipped and ready to give that true off-grid experience for its visitors. Now, however, time is starting to run out for my main house since I've decided to sell this home and have it moved out of the property. Instead, I will build a new and a bit more comfortable semi-off-grid tiny house on the same property, and I'm already well on my way. But it means that now is the perfect timing for me to share with you what I have learned about off-grid living before I begin this new chapter of my life, which you of course can follow on this channel. So one of the practical things that can be a little bit difficult about off-grid life can be the sheer amount of time that you need to put into just maintaining your homestead. And it can sometimes be very strange tasks, like in winter time I need to sweep the snow and ice off of these solar panels. And if I just give you a small tour into my property, you can see the back side of my annex over here, and then there is the new house and the old house that I will be removing and selling in the spring. And then we come down to the woodshed, which is also a very time-consuming project because you always need to make sure that it's filled up with wood. And right now it's a little bit messy, so I also need to spend some time to clean it up. But during the summer and spring you need to fill it up and make sure that it's like ventilated and dry for winter so that you can use it in winter time. In my case, I have a garden which right now looks very sorry for itself, but it takes a lot of time to establish a permaculture forest garden like I'm doing here, because you need to bring in a lot of materials and design it and build it. And then of course you also need to harvest the food during the summer and also preserving it for winter. So there is a lot of work in doing that, but of course also a lot of enjoyment in that, because you get to spend a lot of time out in nature. And then we come over to this solar panel, which also looks a little bit sorry for itself, because it actually got destroyed in a winter storm just a couple of weeks ago. And it reminds me of another thing about off-grid living, which is that you always need to fix stuff on your homestead. Like the first place where I lived with this house, when I lived there, it was during the Corona lockdown, so it meant that I couldn't buy the stuff that I needed to fixate my solar panels outside of the house. So they were just leaned up against the house, and then a heavy wind came and flipped both of the panels over and destroyed them. So I needed to spend a lot of time to fix the cables for those solar panels, because I was dependent on the power from them, obviously. And during Corona, it was not the easiest thing, but I managed. But it took me a lot of time to do it, and that's just part of life out here. Another part of off-grid life is collecting rainwater and cleaning it. So I have this water filtration system from the gutters. I have disconnected it right now. But normally it runs down into a water filter, and then I can get clean water. But it also takes a lot of time, because you need to clean the gutters several times every season. And then you also need to clean the water filtration system. And then you also need to collect the water for the house. So you spend a lot of time just on the water stuff also. So all in all, it is very time consuming to live like this, and the sheer amount of work can easily swallow you up. So you really need to find a way to balance it. But I'm not the best at doing that, because I often just find an excuse for doing more work. So another practical aspect with this lifestyle that can be a little bit difficult at times is that a lot of the luxuries that you normally have in a normal house can take like forever and be an entire project in and of itself, like taking a shower. So if I need to take a shower, I need to heat the water first in this coffee pot, and then I take the hot water and mix it in this bucket with some cold water, and then I need to take this water pump that is connected to the shower head and plunge it into the bucket, and it will give me like 5 minutes of hot rainwater shower, which is obviously very nice to have that opportunity, but at the same time it just takes like forever. And sometimes if you've been working in the garden the entire day, it's just easy to take a quick shower, and you can't always do that. So I kind of miss that. However, I actually made more of an on-demand rainwater shower on the annex, but it's only for the summertime. And then of course there is my wood stove, which here in the winter time is the heart of the house, because I use it for heating and also partially for cooking and heating water. And it is something that is a bit of a project also, because you need to keep it going all the time, or at least in the morning and in the evenings. I need to keep it going to heat up the house, because the house is not super well insulated, so it gets very cold during the night. So in the morning I need to start it up. So you just spend a lot of time just working with the wood stove. And also sometimes you need to clean the pipe, because when it cloaks, then you will know, because then the smoke will quickly fill up the entire house, which is obviously very impractical. So I need to take this stick and then open the skylight window so I can ventilate the space. So I cannot count how many times I do this every single day, because sometimes when you just open the wood stove, a little bit of smoke will come out. So obviously you need to ventilate that out. But I think my friends and family are used to me smelling like a bonfire, because it's kind of like how it is out here. And then obviously also you need to collect the wood from the woodshed and make sure that you have it brought in good time, so it can temperate and also dry a little bit more. So all in all, having a small wood stove like this is just a project in and of itself. So another practical issue with my off-grid life is doing the laundry, because I have this laundry bag out here in the back room where I can just fill in all my laundry, but I can't wash it in the house. Or maybe I could, but I don't want to let out the water because it's filled with chemicals and microplastics from my clothes, and I don't want to pollute the soil that I live on. So that is why I actually need to take this bag with me whenever I go visit my family, or maybe some friends, and it can be a little bit tedious. But one thing that it has taught me is that I actually separate the clothes that I use, so the clothes for working and the nice clothes is totally separate, so that I can just soil myself. Or that came out wrong, but I can get dirty by working, and then I can just keep the work clothes and the nice clothes apart, and in that way I can minimize the amount of laundry that I produce. So, and another practical issue with living off the grid is what you can call scarcity issues. Especially when it comes to power, I always need more power. Not at least because I'm a YouTuber, so I need to film a lot and use a lot of power for that. So I have the batteries for my camera that I'm filming on now. I have the batteries for my drone. And also I have the battery in my cell phone, of course, and in my computer that I'm working on. And then I have these rechargeable battery lamps that I'm pretty dependent on, because that's my only source of lighting in the house at the moment. I have 2 gel batteries that are connected to the solar panels. But it's a little bit dated technology, because gel batteries can only be used like 50%, and then you need to have them fully charged again, or else they will get damaged. And it's not very practical, because then it means that your 100 amp battery will only be like 50 amp in reality, because you cannot use it so much. So I'm constantly afraid to damage the batteries by using them too much. And at this time of year, I don't get that much sunlight, so I can't really use them. So therefore, I needed to buy this backup battery, which is this one, because it's a lithium battery and it's much easier to charge, and I can charge it on my solar panels. I have a generator I can charge it with, or if I'm driving in my car, I can charge it as well. And it's just so much easier because it has a lot of power in it, and every day I'm actually charging most of my devices on this extra battery because it's such a lifesaver for me. So it was a game changer to have this lithium backup battery, but I still have the batteries in my house that I can use from time to time. Another worthy mention when talking about scarcity issues is my seasonal fridge situation, because here in the winter time obviously I don't produce that much electricity from the solar panels. Therefore I have this outdoor fridge in these two baskets, and it's pretty easily accessible. And then in summertime, when I produce more electricity on the solar panels, I have my fridge that I can use down here, but it's also very small. So all in all I have some scarcity issues with regards to how much food that I can store. And also I have the issue that when it freezes outside, it's not a fridge but a freezer, but it's not a big problem. And also it's easily solvable, because you could have like a small insulated closet outside that you could put your food in, or you could have like a small room in the floor where you can put your food down. But in the new house I'll have like a cold room that I can enter from the kitchen, where I will have plenty of space for cooling down food without electricity. Another scarcity issue that people often ask me about is whether or not I have water enough, because I collect the water on the roof in my 1,000-liter rainwater tank, and obviously that's not an unlimited resource. But actually I've never experienced running dry from water in the water tank for my own personal use. Only I think 2 years ago, when I used the same water to also water my garden, which obviously was a very big mistake, because a garden takes a lot of water. So now I have built some extra harvesting systems on the woodshed and also on the annex. So now I have plenty of water for the garden, and also plenty of water for myself here in the house. Because what I do normally is that I look at the weather forecast. So if I can see that, okay, this will be a very dry couple of weeks, then I will just reduce the amount of water that I use for showering and for cooking. And then I can actually get by saving on water in that way. So I think it's a great way to learn how to save on resources, because we humans, we just use way too many resources on this planet. So I think we should all try to learn how to use less resources in our households. So right now I'm just taking Bosimat for a walk in the forest, and it reminds me of another issue with off-grid living, which is a more personal one, because I've been dealing a bit with the realization that you can actually almost never take a day off. And this walk reminds me of that, because I've been working all day, but still this very hyperactive dog, he needs to get activated once in a while, and so we need to take these walks 3 times a day. So it's a very demanding job to have, besides of my building and gardening stuff all the time. So no wonder I lost a lot of weight after I got him, and also went off grid. But anyways, it's just this reality that you have when you live off the grid, that you constantly need to work all the time, and you can actually sometimes get almost like a guilty conscience for not working, because you're used to being in that work mode. But that is just a part of it. And like just recently I got very sick with a fever, and there was just like no mercy, because you still need to keep the fire going in the oven, you still need to collect firewood. But luckily I had a very good friend, and she took me in for a week so I could sleep on her sofa. So that was just a lifesaver. So it just reminds me of the fact that even though you live off the grid, it's still very important to have friends and community around you, because that's to me at least, that's very much part of off-grid living. But it does not take away from the fact that this is a very work-intensive lifestyle, and it can be a little bit difficult to even catch a break at times. So I figured that I might as well take a break now and then place myself on this stump, while Bosimat, he's going at it on another stump just over there. So, but another personal issue that I've been dealing a little bit with has been this question of loneliness. And I get that question a lot, actually, if I'm lonely out in the forest. But like I'm not lonely because I have like a lot of good friends and I have my family and I have like I'm often in contact with people and I'm not totally isolated. Like I see people every week, so it's not like I'm living for weeks and weeks on end alone in the forest. So it's totally not like that. So I am actually pretty social, even though I am an introvert. But sometimes I can still get this sense of loneliness because like back in the day I had a job in the city, so I was surrounded by good colleagues, and you know, I can't have that with this life. I can't have a normal work life. I can't be in contact with other people and colleagues the same way as I've been back in the day. And then also there is this aspect of feeling a little bit outside of the rhythm of society. And I guess there can also be some loneliness to that as well, because I don't feel like I'm part of society in the same way as I did before, even though I feel like I'm more connected to a local community where I live now, and I really enjoy that and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But this sense that society is something out there, it is a good thing and a bad thing, and I think I like it like mostly, but also I like the feeling that I'm also part of something bigger than just me and my community, like being an active citizen in a society and in a welfare state. I think that is a primary concern for me. So this is not a project about leaving society and not wanting to be a part of it. I think it's just a question of being part of society in a different way for me, maybe on a more local level, where I have this volunteer job that I have. Not so much time for that right now, but still I'm still active in that community. And also just being part of the community where I live is also like, that's also society. So I actually don't know really what my point is, other than maybe I'm just reconfiguring the way that I am part of society, and I'm maybe just still adjusting to that. But loneliness is definitely a factor, but I wouldn't say that I'm lonely as such, but I'm still working on how I can be like an active member of something bigger than just myself. Because I think that we humans are inclined to having a connection to something bigger than ourselves in order to have like a meaningful life. So that was my experiences with the more difficult aspects of off-grid life for the last 4 years. I really hope it gave you some food for thought and maybe even some inspiration. But in case you're wondering what will happen now with my off-grid life, I'm definitely not finished with living from nature. But I'm ready to become a bit more established, and I'm ready to make room for other people than just me here in the forest. And in a new home that for legal reasons needs to be connected to the on-grid power and water systems. But that's okay. I will still harvest and live from nature's resources like I do today, just in another setup. And I'll put all of the knowledge that I've gained from this lifestyle into my new sustainable house and homestead. A journey that I can't wait to take you on here on this channel. So thank you for watching and see you again next week.